Great. I know it's a lot of sit and listen today. It's a lot of really good information. And we're in the home stretch between listening for just a little bit longer and then having a chance to move around and ask some really good questions of the folks that are here to be content experts for you. I know when you're getting a bunch of new information, it can seem a little overwhelming. We're at the hour of multitasking. Folks are checking email, doing all kinds of things. Your pretzels are settling in. Hopefully we can just make it through the home stretch. You're in for a really good treat. Andrea Heberlein's here from the United Way in Lancaster County. She's the Vice President for Strategic Impact there. And she's been there for quite some time. I've had the pleasure of working with her in Lancaster, and I consider her an expert on collective impact, not just in being able to talk to you about it here in practical sense, but also in the work that she's done in Lancaster on the ground. And so I encourage you just to sort of turn your brain a little bit to the part of bringing it up about 5,000 feet. So we're going to get out of the weeds a little bit where the programmatic things are happening and talk a little bit about the systems part of this. I know probably your wheels are turning and thinking, oh, there's other people from my community that I wish could hear this, or I think maybe there's a way we can do this. And in many communities, you have United Ways whose main mission is to do some of this work at a broader scale. So I think it'll be really interesting for you to hear from Andrea about that. And even if you don't end up partnering with a United Way in your community, just the notion of collective impact, which I think most of us know in theory, hearing about that and how you can potentially apply those concepts to what we're talking about with Parent Pathways will be a really good connection for that. So without further ado, Andrea's here to give you the collective impact scoop.
Thank you, and thank you, Pam. And yes, I'm glad she kind of set the stage, because we are going to go kind of from like some nitty-gritty, some really cool programmatic things that are happening, to this higher level to think about strategy and how, when you're thinking about the context and the perspective of Parent Pathways, how you might be able to pull this together. And so I'm going to use the experience with United Way of Lancaster County to help craft this for you. So I am sure that everybody in this room is familiar with United Way in one shape or form, but many of you may still think about United Way in a very traditional way. You know, you may think about kind of this federated fundraiser model that we had for years. I mean, for United Way of Lancaster County, it was like 80 years in which we had kind of member partner agencies in which we would go out in the community, primarily through the workforce campaign, and raise money. So that was our role. We were the federated fundraiser model. And what happened was, as the kind of time progressed and we recognized how important it was to collect outcomes, we kind of went more to this community impact model. But what that looked like was that every kind of member agency and their programs reported their outcomes in kind of their own way, with their own measures. And what happened is we kind of had this scatter plot of outcomes, many of which were outputs, in which we weren't able to draw the connection between our investment into how it was improving our community-wide indicators. Poverty, graduation rate, school readiness, for example. And we just really had this disparate kind of outcome chart. And so in 2015, after several years of community conversations, outreach and awareness, planning, United Way of Lancaster County decided to completely go away from that kind of federated fundraiser model into one of 100% collective impact, of funding cross-sector partners working strategically to solve bold goals around education, financial stability, and health. And I will tell you, while we're now kind of almost through our 4th year of this model, it really seems like ages ago. I mean, the way that our community has dramatically changed the way we think about, talk about, and coordinate around social problems is so different than it was. And I just, when I think about where we've come from, I'm so reminded of the public health parable of the babies in the water. Is anybody familiar with that? Okay. I see a couple of hands, and I'm going to go ahead and share this because I think it really kind of helps set the stage of this change of mindset that we had in our community. So, a good parable, as always, starts with once upon a time. So, once upon a time, there was a tiny village at the edge of the water, the edge of a river. And one morning, the villagers were at the side of the river, and they were gathering their water and socializing and doing what villagers do at the side of the river, when all of a sudden, they noticed a baby floating down the river. Oh my God, they spring into action, rescue this baby. You know, what happened? I can't believe this. Lo and behold, here comes another baby. Again, they rescue this baby. And all of a sudden, they realize that there are more babies coming down the river. So they spring into action. They call to the village, asking people, run, come help. This is an emergency. It's in a crisis. It's all hands on deck. So they form this kind of ad hoc rescue operation. And it's working. I mean, they're just rescuing these babies. And oh my gosh, it's working so great. When all of a sudden, the leaders of this rescue organization look up, and there's several members of the village that are like running away from the scene. And they start yelling like, hey, like, where are you going? Like, this is an emergency. This is a crisis. Get back here. And they yell back, the folks that are running away is like, we're going upstream to stop who is ever throwing the babies in the river in the first place. And that's what I think about when I think about what United Way has changed as a result of collective impact. We are now looking at the root causes and changing the systems that are throwing the babies in the river in the first place. So, how exactly are we doing that? So, we started adopting collective impact work as a framework to accelerate systems change. So, in 2011, John Kanya and Mark Kramer published what is now the seminal article called Collective Impact in the Stanford Social Innovation Review. What they did was, they didn't necessarily invent collective impact. What they did was, they looked at successful social change initiatives, and they figured out what made them successful. So programs like the Strive Together initiative, the Harlem's Children's Zone, they really looked at what were kind of those common denominators that were creating this success over time. And what they figured out, they coined the 5 conditions of collective impact. So it's the framework that when you apply it intentionally and strategically, it structures cross-sector partnership work towards success. So it is the framework. And so we look at the first condition, common agenda. All participants have a shared vision for change, including a common understanding of the problem and a joint approach to solving it through agreed upon actions. And we kind of alluded to this when we heard from the Aspen Institute, right? Everybody needs to be on the same page. All partners are defining the identified problem in the same way and agree on the plan of action. The common agenda, or the shared measurement, collecting data and measuring results consistently across all participants ensures efforts remain aligned and participants hold each other accountable. And I can't stress this enough. Having shared data collection plan and evaluation measures in place is so important. At United Way of Lancaster County, we contract with Franklin and Marshall College, their Center for Opinion Research, and they support, guide, manage our evaluation process, and it's proven to be critically important. I mean, when we look back at that slide where we kind of had all these disparate outcomes, Franklin and Marshall is able to pull all of this work together that we can now look at our county-wide indicators through all of our collective impact partnership lenses. Mutually reinforcing activities. Participant activities must be differentiated while still being coordinated through a mutually reinforcing plan of action. So not everybody, obviously, in a collective impact partnership is going to be doing the same things. However, there's that intentionality around how the expertise is coordinated and connected. Continuous communication. Consistent and open communication is needed across the many players to build trust, assure mutual objectives, and appreciate common motivation. So this kind of sounds like a no-brainer, but I will tell you, for us, this still continues to be one of the most challenging things. How do we get all the partners that are communicating in a consistent and effective way that is not, kind of a pain? Your inbox is getting filled up, you're having to go to an external site to do the communication. But we know to be able to kind of build that trust and have the initiative move forward, it's really important. So we're still kind of figuring this out. And then finally, the backbone support. Creating and managing collective impact requires a dedicated staff and a specific set of skills to serve as the backbone for the entire initiative and coordinate participating organizations and agencies. So this is the foundation for success, as we have found. Having a dedicated organization, not only to provide dollars and funding and resources, but also to coordinate and support the work, the evaluation, the communication and marketing, technical assistance is absolutely key. And this is the role that United Way of Lancaster County now plays for our 10 collective impact partnerships. And it's so dramatically different than we have done our work ever before. I mean, we are actively attending the meetings. We have a team that serves as liaisons. Again, we've got our communications and marketing team. We've got our resource development team. But we are all working as a backbone to support the Collective Impact Initiative. And we do this because our historical efforts have shown us that problems like poverty are multifaceted, and they really can't be solved by a single entity or a single discipline. So collective impact offers a strategic framework for tackling complex social problems around education, financial stability, and health. And as a result of this framework, United Way has embraced this really different role as the backbone organization. So the evaluation work, assisting with outreach and awareness, even legislative advocacy, connection to other partnerships, and shared learning opportunities. Our primary work now revolves around supporting these cross-sector partners to coordinate their work to tackle these social and economic factors contributing to the health and well-being of our residents. So really mitigating and eliminating those social determinants of health. So what I'd like to do now is give you more of a concrete example of what collective impact looks like in action. So what does a collective impact partnership look like? And when you think about the Parent Pathways model, this may really be applicable to thinking about the different cross-sector partners that you want to bring to the table to be able to accelerate this work. So let's take school readiness as a complex social problem. We know how important school readiness is, right? I've seen early childhood folks in the audience, OCDEL, PDE. We know that when children enter kindergarten on day one, ready to be successful, that they're likely to carry that success, high school graduation, post-secondary credentials, and beyond, right? But we also know that children living in poverty, families living in poverty, have a lot of barriers to school readiness. We have unstable or unfit housing, possibly food insecurity, unreliable or unavailable transportation, and sometimes exposure to daily trauma. But we know that even these children, these at-risk children, if they can access high-quality early care and education, that high-quality early care and education can actually reduce or mitigate all those challenges that poverty poses. So the unfortunate news about that is that quality early care and education, high-quality early care and education is expensive. I know that I have some experts in the room, but has anybody priced out childcare recently? Couple people? Yeah, so I think on an average, like $230 a week for infant care, about $180 a week for preschool care. So that's expensive. You know, it's out of touch for a lot of families, and believe me, we have amazing state-funded quality programs like Pre-K Counts and Head Starts, but the reality is that only a fraction of children have access to those programs. So what happens is the majority of children in childcare aren't necessarily in a Star 3 or a Star 4 center. And it's not just true of Lancaster County. I'm sure it's the case statewide that children tend to be in childcare in home-based childcare centers. So the relative or neighbor down the street that's watching children so that parents can work. The unfortunate news about this is that oftentimes those home-based childcare providers don't have the education, the training, or the resources to create that high-quality setting that will prepare children to be successful for school. So, the example of a collective impact partnership working to tackle this complex social problems, similar to like the 2Gen situations that we heard, is called SAIL, Systems Aligned in Learning. So this is an example of a collective impact partnership that is using collective impact to solve this complex problem of school readiness by bringing partners together to increase the quality of home-based providers, because we know that there is a direct correlation between quality and outcomes for children. So Luther Care is the lead agency for our collective impact partnership. Now, of all of our partnerships, there is one organization or one agency that serves as the lead. So while United Way is serving as the backbone for the entire kind of collective impact initiative, the lead agency is serving that role for the partnership. So, you know, Luther Care is the one that is convening the meetings, that they are gathering the evaluation data and submitting it to United Way. They're the primary point of contact for us. But their role in the actual partnership work is that they employ early childhood educators that are mobile to support the home-based providers. So they go out to where the home-based providers are. Many of them are bilingual, and they help the providers increase their quality through, obviously at a very basic level, it's that health and safety is so important. And then it's age-appropriate learning activities, it's introduction to curriculum and assessment, and it's also helping the providers get their higher degrees, like their CDAs. Certainly licensure is really important. So that's kind of the role of the Luther Care and their early childhood mentors. Then Penn Medicine, Lancaster General Health, is another partner that comes in, and they are focused on the health and wellness, nutrition and wellness of the children that are being served. So they teach the providers about healthy meals and snacks. They provide the resources. They do cooking classes for the providers, and also the families are invited to participate. They've also created physical activity kits that are modeled by the mentor, so the mentor can take them into the home, show them how they're used, and they also really talk about the importance of developmentally appropriate activities that can be incorporated in the provider's home throughout the day. We know that children need to be healthy to be able to learn, so this health, nutrition, and physical activity piece is really, really important. And then COBES is the partner that provides the evidence-based social emotional training, incredible years for the providers. So when we talk about school readiness, we know obviously that having those academic skills on day one of kindergarten is really important. However, if you've ever talked to a kindergarten teacher, they will tell you that the social emotional skills are as important, if not more important. You know, they're like, I can teach, but the children need to be able to pay attention and learn and keep their hands to themselves and really have those social emotional skills. So this Incredible Years program has proven to be incredibly successful. We've got great attendance, and the providers then are able to learn those skills and teach the parents of the children that they serve. So hopefully what the children are experiencing at their child care, their place of child care, is being translated into their home setting. And then the final partner of this collective impact partnership is the library system of Lancaster. And so that's the Be Ready Rover. There's Mary, the children's librarian who drives Be Ready Rover, goes out to the provider's home. And let me tell you, the Be Ready Rover is jam full packed with age-appropriate, developmentally appropriate, literacy-based toys and games and books. And Mary does story time with the children, so she's modeling how to, read to children, how to use play as a way of learning. So it's always a happy day when Mary comes in the Be Ready Rover van. And so all of this is to show that we have these cross-sector partners that are coming together to tackle a complex social problem. And because of our work with Franklin and Marshall, we have evidence that this is working. So some of you in the room will know that there is a standardized assessment tool called FICRS, the Family Child Care Environmental Rating Scale. And this is just a way that we can gauge quality. And what we've seen is that after 2 years of receiving sales services, that the home-based providers are increasing their quality to equivalent to a star 2 or a star 3 even, which is phenomenal because, again, we know that quality equals better outcomes for children. So this is an example of a cross-sector partnership that is really making a difference. And so I also have up there, I want to note, I saw I only have 5 minutes left, but I wanted to point out that collective impact extends beyond United Way of Lancaster County. We have Lancaster Coalition to End Homelessness. They started like 15 years ago, and before we even called it collective impact, like that's what they're doing. And they have achieved remarkable success in our community. We were recognized as the first community to end chronic homelessness in Lancaster as a result of their work. And then the Mayor's Commission to Combat Poverty, when they wrote their big county or citywide plan, specifically called out collective impact as the way in which they were going to accomplish their work. So we truly have seen remarkable changes in our county. Again, the way that we think about, the way that we talk, and the way that we work together. And just as a final note, I will also say that through our evaluation work with F&M, we have seen, based on a national study that was done looking at 25 collective impact initiatives across the United States that had been in operation an average of 7 to 10 years or longer, that our success is being overlaid with the successes that they're seeing of longitudinal successful collective impact partnerships. And one of our most impressive kind of early changes that we're seeing is the amazing increases in coordination, cooperation that between our health and social services in Lancaster County. We went from 22 very kind of separate, isolated silos of networks to 7 more coordinated, cooperative, communicative networks in which we're seeing that we are reducing duplication and eliminating gaps in services. So this is definitely a strategy that you can think about as you look at parent pathways, and we have evidence that when applied intentionally and strategically, it does work.